Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the MLG main stage for StarCraft 2. We have a fantastic match coming up for you between Jaedong and Dia. It's going to be a clash of the Titans. My name is Total Biscuit. I'm joined by Axelav. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure listening to you and Day 9 do that rather fast match between Nano and Huck.
It was not a slow one, and it was, well, let's just say that Nano was on his game right now.
He looked absolutely terrifying there, of course. Before we get to our next match, a lot of promos out there for you guys this weekend, a lot of special opportunities. There's one here from the Gunner people, of course, 15% off the Gunner glasses and free shipping to anywhere in the USA. Use this code MLG Anaheim.
May or may not give you X-ray vision, cannot be guaranteed. One way or the other, folks, this match that we've got coming up for you is going to be fantastic. Dia has been tearing his way through this bracket. His first appearance over in the US. Jaedong, of course, no stranger to foreign competition.
That's right, of course, Jaedong with Team EG. He does have that Kespa background, of course, playing for Kespa teams for his entire Brood War career and the first chunk of his StarCraft 2 career. So both of them come from the same training background, but Dia still lives in that background, and Jaedong for the past several months has been with a non-Korean team. So how do you think that's going to affect his play going up against Dia?
Well, you know what the interesting thing about both of these guys is that some people don't know is the fact that Jaedong and Dia used to be on the same team for a while.
Hwasong Oz, right?
Yes, indeed. They were on Hwasong Oz for quite some time, and of course Jaedong went on to Team 8, and we had Dia move to STX Seoul. And they have quite the history, at least in terms of practicing against each other. But lately, it is a little bit of a different environment. EGTL, at least the Korean house, is considered to be a Pro League house, but it doesn't quite have the storied history of any of the bigger Kespa teams.
That's right, and also doesn't have the same depth of players as far as numerically. I mean, these Kespa teams have huge rosters, a lot of different practice partners. That's going to give Dia, I think, a small advantage. Now, Jaedong did look pretty insane at DreamHack, right?
Yeah.
So he has that international big tournament experience. He's shown he can win at that top level. And Dia, we haven't seen him play in events outside of Pro League until just now. So, so far, he's looked pretty fearsome. But QXC did show that he can be beaten.
Yeah, Dia is not invincible by any stretch of the imagination, but the elephant in the room here is Jaedong's game versus Protoss. It is not known as his strongest matchup. This may very well be the thorn in his side as we go in here on Belshir Vestige for Game 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Belshir Vestige. It's my pleasure to introduce our first contestant here on the main stage. To the southeast position, hailing from South Korea. In the red trunks playing Zerg, some call him the Tyrant. He is EG Jaedong! What a monster. Versus his opponent, teammate, the WCS Grand Championship. Yes, indeed, Innovation himself. In the blue trunks, playing Protoss to the northwest. STX Seoul, Dia!
You know, both these guys, like you mentioned, used to be on Team Hwasong Oz and Brood War, and during most of that time, Jaedong was the ace player of that team. So it's got to be an experience for Dia to come up against Jaedong now, you know, a couple of years after that, after they were on the same team, going up against him in an event in a totally different country. Now they're on totally different teams. They live in totally different environments, right, with EGTLs versus the STX house. But I wonder if there's still the same element of this guy was like the boss of the house back in the day.
I have to wonder, you know, when these guys run into each other like that, because it happens a lot in Pro League as well. They have run into each other in Pro League in StarCraft 2 a little bit, not much. I believe it's only been twice, and it's 50-50, one map each. So it's hard to say how exactly they would feel about each other at this stage. I have no doubt, though, that Jaedong does respect Dia, and of course vice versa. So I don't expect either of them to be playing anything crazy or ridiculously risky. But the Nexus first play coming down here from Dia, Hatchery going down nice and quick, but there's a Forge in the back as well. So Nexus before Forge, nice and defensive, little bit greedier than Forge before the Nexus, but absolutely fine. So let's see where this goes. I can't imagine this is going to be a quick game.
doesn't look like it's going to be very fast. One thing I like about this forge in the base is there's two advantages to doing this. One is you actually save some resources because the first pylon, you just build it and your probe goes right back to mining instantly, as opposed to having to walk out to your natural, build a pylon, then off and well, might as well scout at this point. The other great advantage of it is the fact that so many Zerg players, when their Overlord sees no wall in the natural, they'll automatically assume it's a gateway expansion. It might go for gas or some type of build in reaction to that. Of course, Jaedong didn't fall for that. He went straight away and saw the fact that it was a Nexus first. He's going to go ahead and take that third hatchery.
Nice little grab as well. Deer not able to deny that. He wouldn't have been able to do it for long with the Zergling there, but didn't even really get in there. A couple of Lings now moving their way in, and they're going to just wander right past the cannon, which wasn't quite up yet, and they will be able to perhaps get themselves a probe. Let's see how good Deer's control really is. Jaedong gets into the base. He's going to get all the information he could possibly desire here. Nice little pickup for him.
Nice little scouting advantage here, of course. With Deer's probe control, I really don't think we'll see too many probes down here. In fact, it would be a surprise if even the Zerglings got a single probe. But every time the probes have to come off the mineral lines, you have to go chase the Zerglings, that's some economic damage done. It may be 5-10 minerals here.
Yeah.
That adds up, though, over time. 60-80 minerals you can delay your opponent on mining. That can make a difference. Now, it's not going to win the game, but it's going to be a nice little advantage. And also, the perfect scout information, he doesn't have to worry about any type of funny build because he'll see it coming a mile away.
Absolutely. It's a nice little bit of annoyance. It keeps Deer on his toes. He has to respond to it eventually because it will eventually do something. But as it stands, Deer has not really taken any direct damage. Just as you mentioned, a little bit of indirect and, of course, a little bit of annoyance. Jaedong, on the other hand, powering out drones and queens at this stage, going to hobble that queen all the way over to the third base rather than building one at the third, slightly quicker. Down goes one of those Zerglings. It's actually kind of amazing how long those have been in there, but now the Mothership Core's out. The Zerglings are not really going to get too much further. Maybe a good idea to run back down the ramp, see if there's anything down the bottom there, assuming that they'll actually make it, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to go for one last run around for its inevitable demise, and that's one dead Ling. It does, however, just as it was going in there, get the scout. +1 is on its way.
Always nice to know if you tell they're getting +1 before tech building. That often indicates some type of gateway aggression. Usually not going to be a very committed aggression, although Deer is known as an aggressive player, but he's actually going straight for a very fast third base here. I love this decision. He knows that Jaedong took a gasless Sturg because his probe saw that early, and he got the +1 on the forge, so Jaedong might overreact, and if it's a situation where Jaedong gets a bunch of Zerglings, a bunch of Roaches, then all Deer has to do is defend the third. He'll be a little bit ahead economically.
Certainly he will be. Stalker just making its way in there, knowing, of course, that speed is not done. So it's still a risk, though. He could get caught out here. Attempted surround coming in. Doesn't quite get it, though. Deer is able to move out of range. The Mothership Core taking some fairly significant hits here. That's actually kind of risky. And he may even have to recall, but no, he's able to dash out of there. But it's not, you don't really want to take that kind of damage on the Mothership Core, especially if you want to pressure with it again. It's a little bit too risky. If you lose it and you can't recall, suddenly you get surrounded. But Deer knew that there was no speed, so he was able to do that relatively risk-free.
A nice little move by Jaedong, having a presence of mind. Even while he was being pressured by the Stalkers and Mothership Core, he noticed the third going down, so sent some Zerglings around to harass him. Of course, Deer not missing a beat, had that wallop in time, and now he's actually got 2 probe kills. Mothership Core is taking fire, though.
Yep, and that's what we were talking about earlier. If it takes damage now, it may not be able to recall later, but unfortunately, Queens don't hit that hard. So he's able to recall right back to his natural without too much of a problem.
Cut that one pretty close, though.
Yeah, he really, really did. And that's certainly the sign of either a very competent player or a very overconfident player.
Maybe a little bit of both sometimes. They sometimes go hand in hand, of course. Deer has no reason not to be confident so far. He's shown great play throughout this bracket, and he's identified exactly what Jaedong's been up to. He's got his third base pretty well established here. Jaedong's got a decent force of Zerglings crossing the map, but it shouldn't be accomplished too much with the great walls that Deer has set up.
Yeah, when you look at SimCity, that is SimCity 2000 right there. There is so much in the way that would prevent Zerglings from getting any kind of real surround at this stage. It's even good against Roaches because, quite frankly, they have a limited range, puts them right in the range of the cannons. They've got to bust their way through. They can't get a good arc of fire on the important buildings. So Deer has set himself up very nicely here. Scouting hallucination gets him some info as well. He's going to see the Hydra Den. He's going to see the Hydra Den researching as well, which is always nice.
has he spotted that infestation? But that's what's actually very important to know, because Tony...
Hello, that's a grab and a half. If he actually does damage to these sentries, he saved them. That was incredibly well done.
Only 3 force fields.
Yeah, 3 force fields and a zealot. There's apparently enough to deal with about 20 circlings. That is actually terrifying.
I mean, normally see Protoss put down like 8 there in a panic, but Deer, the presence of mind, he knows, just be patient, put him down calmly, and just immaculate control here. And you can tell Jaedong respects his control. He's not going to try to overwhelm him with roaches and Hydras. Seeing force fields like that, I don't blame him. Going straight to Hive play.
Yeah, probably the best thing you can do in this kind of situation, honestly. We've got upgrades coming in, but it's not a particularly upgrade-heavy approach from Deer, actually. He's got a lot of gateways coming down. He's looking for Blink and +2. He's not gone double Forge here.
Double Robo.
Interesting. All right, okay. We haven't actually seen that in a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time since you've seen double Robo. I mean, you'll see it as a response to Swarm Host.
Yeah.
But so far, he's scouted the roaches and Hydras, and I think he's identified because he saw the fact that Jaedong was getting the upgrades as far as the speed into range. When he scouted, he saw the buildings are wiggling. And so he knows there's no muted transition. There's a lot of this gas about the non-mutas thing.
Yeah.
And I think he's figuring, well, if he's not making mutas, Colossi are pretty good, right? Why not get him 2 at a time?
The risk, of course, is that this early Hive play could lead into some Vipers, which might be the thing which deals quite nicely with the Colossus. It depends on how many Vipers. It also depends on the positioning, of course. There are some that consider the Viper Abduct to be a guaranteed kill of Colossus, but if there are enough, and if you end up having them too close to the Hydras, it can actually backfire on you in a pretty spectacular fashion. We'll get a little bit of poking here, potential engagement as Dia tries to move in. Jaedong moves his way back onto creep. The Hydra force is quite significant, looks to try and get a concave, is not able to do so yet.
With all the Stalker count here in the Blink, now there's sentries, it's all coming down to force fields. You can isolate half the army, Blink on the other half, it's going to be a good trade for Deer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really awkward spot, actually, for Jaedong to be in. He's trying to get that good arc of fire, but he's taking so much in return. And down go the force fields income from the side. Jaedong indecisive here with the engagement, losing unit after unit here. He does have a lot of units coming on the field, but he needs to get that good engagement. He's not getting it right now. Deer is able to smash his way in, and now the fight begins.
And look at how he conserves the force field, uses them only when needed. Great micro by Deer. He's trading so efficiently here. Jaedong's being forced back. The 4th is going to have to be forfeit. And, Deer now has equal supply with a much more supply-efficient army. Sentries and Stalkers and Immortals versus just Roaches and Hydras.
Jaedong lost quite a bit there, and Deer barely lost anything. I mean, you're just not seeing units going down here, and brings a Swarm Host out, but I mean, look at that. The difference in resources is astronomical between these two players right now. An engagement comes in, not the best here for Deer, but does it even need to be with the amount of numbers on the field? Those Immortals are untouchable. The Roaches can't do anything. The Hydra is desperately scrambling to put on a defense of some sort, but Deer is just playing like a monster right now.
Absolutely spectacular control there. Force field after force field goes down, and Jaedong is forced out, and a pretty one-sided game there.
It really was. Let's not beat around the bush. Deer engaged every single time incredibly well. Jaedong was shut out at every possible opportunity. Going for the early Hive tech also didn't help him. We got this nasty timing where you get a lot of Stalkers, a lot of Sentries, 3 Immortals, just smash your way through your opponent's force before he's able to get Vipers out, before he's able to get upgrade heavy or anything like that. And then it's just that against Roach Hydra, and that's not going to work.
It's definitely not going to work if you give Deer that high ground position where he can really isolate Jaedong's army and take on half at a time. He manipulated the battlefield so well there. I think he went for a double Robo, so maybe he wasn't banking on that killing his opponent.
No.
But then when he saw that the creep wasn't that far out and he could get that position, he's like, well, why not?
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is even if he didn't have the position, he had enough sentries to make that position.
Yeah.
And if you've got your army split in 2, you're trying to go up those ramps, you're going to get force fielded off. And Deer has not missed a force field yet in this particular game, and I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. Jaedong took a pretty hard hit there, I've got to say, and Deer was looking dominant. The question, I suppose, then becomes, will Jaedong be able to rally it back in Game 2? We'll find out after this break, folks. Don't go anywhere.